The story begins as the Demon King launches an all-out invasion on the entire world. This invasion leads to the downfall of many nations, including the Gargan Empire, which has the largest population of humanoid warriors. As humans, elves and dwarves slowly become cornered and face extinction, they are forced to take desperate measures. They combine all their forces and fight the demons like there's no turning back. Among them comes a suicide squad that manages to infiltrate the Demon King's castle, in a final attempt to slay him. After a long and grueling battle that decides the fate of mankind, the Demon King is finally defeated and the heroes of the Suicide Squad are about to escape. That is, until they stumble upon something even more ominous. They discover a woman, shackled in chains, guarded by two monstrously powerful demons. One of the heroes, Theron, seems to recognize the imprisoned girl and decides to stay behind, instructing his two teammates, Kyle and Urza, to leave without him, and they do accordingly. But on their way out of the castle, they enter a room where a mysterious crimson crystal is being stored. The male hero, Kyle, begins to approach it when several magic orbs strike from above. While he manages to block most of the attacks with his sword, one of the orbs hits him directly, leaving him completely defenseless. That's when Urza, his mage comrade, steps in front of him and uses the last bit of her power to shield him, sacrificing herself to save his life. As Urza disappears into nothingness, the mysterious winged attacker finally reveals himself before Kyle. Overflowing with rage and grief, Kyle charges forward in a reckless attempt at revenge. But even after landing a blow, his attack does nothing. The winged demon relentlessly launches enhanced deadly feathers at Kyle, giving him no chance to counter. Kyle's sword spirit informs him that the technique the demon is using is called elimination, an unblockable high-level spell that destroys everything in its path. Knowing he won't survive the next strike, Kyle makes a desperate choice. He decides to release the full power of his sword's gemstone. The sword spirit doesn't object, willing to do anything to protect its worthy wielder. Kyle activates his ultimate attack, unleashing all of the gemstone's power, and strikes the demon with everything he has. His blade pierces through the enemy, ending the demon's life along with the sword's as well. Silence follows, and Kyle realizes he's the only survivor of the battle. Even though peace is finally restored, he has nothing left. His home, his friends, his loved ones, none of them survived. With nothing to live for, he collapses to the ground, ready to give up, but out of nowhere, the crimson crystal starts glowing uncontrollably. Sensing danger, Kyle pushes himself up with the last of his strength, and walks toward the crystal to stop it from doing anything that could harm mankind. But the moment he touches it, everything fades to black. When Kyle regains consciousness, he finds himself lying in his bed, in his own room. But how is that even possible? Seeking answers, he rushes to the window and sees his city in the distance, the one that should have been in flames and reduced to rubble, completely intact. As tears roll down his cheeks, he becomes convinced that this must be a cruel dream created by his mind. Then the door opens. His childhood friend Lise enters casually, telling him to come downstairs already because he's been sleeping for too long. Kyle stares at her in disbelief. Lise, of course, doesn't understand what's going on. She assumes he's acting strange because he has an upset stomach and comes closer to check on him, only for Kyle to pull her in for a tight hug. Overwhelmed with joy just to see her alive again, she blushes and asks him if he's drunk or something. She tries to get away, only for Kyle to hug her more tightly. This ends up with both of them conveniently falling onto the bed, leaving Kyle completely flustered. Lise, finally gaining some control, shoves Kyle away from her and strikes him with a punch to the gut. She screams at Kyle, saying that whatever he just did to her, she needs some time to process it and must prepare herself mentally. Before giving him a reply after saying so, she calls him, "You jerk," and runs out of his room. Kyle, still clutching his stomach in pain, suddenly realizes that he's not supposed to feel any pain, as this is supposed to be a dream, which means whatever this is, it must be real. He notices something under his blanket, and as he lifts it up, he finds the crimson crystal lying there, making him realize that it was the crystal's power that allowed him to go back in time before the invasion had begun. Looking in the mirror, Kyle figures out that he is now much younger than he was. He takes a look at his body to see that he has no injury, which makes him believe that this is no dream. He takes a look outside the window to see that the land is back to normal, and since Lise, the love of his life, was alive, he concludes that he has been sent to the past. This thought leads him to take a much closer look at the magic stone, but he doubts that it would have the power to send him to the past. While he deliberates on this, his stomach rumbles from hunger and he rushes out to find something to eat. Fortunately, he was met by a full table of food which Lise had made. The sight of this reminds him of the time when Lise would always come over to help him and his mom with the cooking. Without wasting much time, he helps himself out by destroying every single plate. After a while, he ends up finishing everything on the table. At that moment, Theron strolls into the dining room to have his breakfast. However, he is met by a table as empty as Kyle's head. The thought of Kyle finishing everything by himself shocks Theron, but he chooses to let it go since that day was Kyle's birthday, even though Kyle doesn't see this as a worthy enough birthday gift. Meanwhile, seeing Theron, he is reminded that they were just in a fight together before his death. However, Theron leaves to find a solution to his hunger. On the other hand, Kyle finally realizes that he has indeed returned to the past, but in order to get answers, he goes to ask his mother some questions, as she always did in his previous life. Kyle's mother spends her time at their underground library. She had been reading all night and had lost track of time. Ignoring that fact, he proceeds to ask her the question. Since she was an archmage, he believed she would be able to provide an answer to it. Just then, he seeks to know if a time-traveling spell exists, and she reveals that it does exist. However, before he gets excited, she goes on to tell him about how rare a spell like that is. Furthermore, she informs him that such a spell cannot be used since it requires an immense amount of magic power, one that even the most powerful mages do not possess. In that moment, he seeks to know if a magic item can actually be a catalyst to store an immense amount of magic power, and she confirms that it is possible. However, such power would require a being that has lived for centuries. Also, there exists the possibility of generating such power from having hundreds of lives lost. In this case, the deaths caused by the demons had led to an immense transfer of magic power to the magic stone that had caused Kyle to return to the past. What would you do with this stone if you could get your hands on it? While he thinks about this, Kyle's mother brings a book with a picture of the only magic item capable of storing such power. Just as expected, the magic stone in his hands was just the right item. It happened to be the legendary divine dragon's heart, which had been missing for over 1,000 years. This completely answers Kyle's questions, and he is pleased that he got to have this conversation with his mom after a long time since her death in his past life, although she is thrilled with how matured he has become, not knowing that she is speaking to a son who is about a decade older. When the two are done with their questions and answer session, she stands up to go and eat. But when he informs her about the absence of any meal, she is left with no choice but to offer it to him as a birthday gift, just as Theron had done earlier. Now I'm left to believe they are just broke. Later on, Kyle goes to a quiet place where he looks at the stone one more time. He imagines what his old self would have wanted him to correct. Just then, Lise arrives and he immediately apologizes to her about the morning incident. He claims that he had a weird dream that led him to hold on to her behind, stating that she was died in his dream. Hearing this makes her believe that he truly cares about her, and she forgives him. After that, he wishes him a happy birthday. Looking into her beautiful eyes, he is reminded of the incident that led to her death. Apparently, their town was the closest town to the demon territory, and when the demons proceeded to attack humans, they were the first to be taken down. The touching moment she took her last breath shows itself, and he had vowed to avenge her death. While thinking about this, he gets lost in his thoughts and she calls him back to reality. The two sit together, facing the sun, but Kyle remembers that they would experience the havoc of the demon attack in 3 years. He takes it upon himself to find a way to stop this from happening or risk losing everyone he loves like he did before. He is determined to change his fate and the fate of the humans. But wait, did he really have to stand up and say it like a wannabe top G? Later that night, Kyle spends his time documenting all the future events he can remember. He considers telling people about the pending demon attack, but is convinced that nobody would believe him. Since that's not an option, he is hell-bent on killing the Demon King himself, even though he is nothing but a pathetic weakling now compared to his old self. Regardless, he picks up his sword to test himself and see if he stands a chance. Kyle begins practicing with his sword, imagining that he's facing the winged demon that took his life in the previous timeline. Although he can dodge some of the attacks, he is still hit and realizes that he's not yet good enough to be the world's savior. The good thing is, Kyle still has 3 years before the great invasion begins, and he decides to take practicing with his sword and magic seriously, which he admits he didn't do last time. Using spells like strength and haste, he increases his stats and notices that he feels more powerful than usual, leaving him wondering if his magic power has increased due to the Crimson Crystal's powers. Regardless, he continues practicing, and now, with a boosted speed, he is able to dodge almost all of the attacks by the winged demon. But as he nearly closes the distance, he gets hit and is thrown to the ground. He figures out that his current body is not yet used to the strength boost his magic is giving, but he must keep going in order to tackle the doomsday. In the meantime, Theron and Lise are keeping an eye on Kyle in secret from behind the bushes, and they start wondering what's gotten into this idiot. All of a sudden, Theron's mom, Miss Layla, arrives to see how her son is doing these days and asks Lise if he has been behaving. Lise snitches on Theron, revealing that not only is he not providing for himself, he begs her for food every single day. Layla decides to hear this story later, as her interest is in Kyle. She can't help but notice from Kyle's fighting style that something's changed in him, something serious. She asks Lise and Theron if something serious has happened, and Lise at that moment recalls how soulless Kyle's eyes looked the previous day. Neither Lise nor Theron is sure what happened, but Layla believes the only thing that can change a teenager overnight is if they fall for someone. Lise is shocked by Layla's theory and thinking it's not her. She immediately walks up to Kyle, demanding he confess before she beats the crap out of him. Kyle, of course, has no clue what she is talking about, and as he fails to confess, she is warned, proceeds to beat the crap out of him. To make up for hurting the poor innocent fellow, Lise cooks him a nice meal for lunch and Layla and Theron get to join in on the food as well. Kyle reveals that Layla is his master, and with her here, he asks everyone if they know someone who is influential enough to control several nations of this world. Theron thinks kings have that kind of power, while Lise thinks the highest-ranking priests have some influence like that. And lastly, Layla thinks the hero Randolph, who defeated the Demon King 300 years ago, has the power to bend the ears of many nations. The reason Kyle asked them this question is because he wishes to become someone like that, and realistically, his chances are slim to become anyone like that. The only thing he can become in the next 2 to 3 years is a hero, of course, that is, if he works his ass off. Feeling tense, he gets up, leaving everyone wondering if this idiot got hit in the head or something. Later at night, Kyle sits with dozens of books from his mom's library, trying to acquire as much knowledge as possible to help him become a hero. Theron comes to his room, having heard about Kyle's goal, and gives him the most generic advice about becoming strong. Kyle, however, states that strength alone isn't enough. A hero needs money, as well, since both traveling and adventuring cost a lot. Furthermore, a hero needs connections with powerful people who can help in political matters, and lastly, the thing a hero needs most is luck. Theron understands, but what he still doesn't get is why the hell Kyle wants to become a hero. He's not curious, he just believes that Kyle's real goal is something else, and becoming a hero is just a step to achieve that. Kyle is impressed by Theron's intuition, but he still can't reveal his true reasons, so he simply asks him to trust him regardless. Theron hopes for the best for his friend and leaves the room, wishing him good luck. Now that Kyle's finally alone, he starts reading a book and finds some useful info that could help him make money. He also plans to meet a woman, a crucial encounter that he believes will surely help him become a hero. The next morning, he decides to go on a journey in 2 days and tells Layla and Theron about his plans during breakfast. Layla is surprised by Kyle's strong will and determination and asks if he has spoken to his mom yet. He has, and she cried a bunch. Layla then decides to make her good-for-nothing son join Kyle on his adventure, and Kyle is glad to hear it since he had intended to take Theron with him in the first place. Layla jokes right in front of Theron that he'll make a good human shield, and Kyle adds that he's indeed suitable as a sacrificial pawn. Jokes aside, after breakfast, Kyle breaks the news to Lise, who is visibly upset to the point that she can't even look at him. When she learns that he intends to go to the royal capital for work experience, she asks to come along, but Kyle instantly refuses, not wanting to put her in danger. Still, she persists, saying she won't be a liability as she's been trained with the Oracle warriors. Knowing there's no shutting her up, Kyle kisses her, then makes the promise that once he comes back, he'll visit her first and continue what he just started with her here. Lise doesn't know what to say. Regaining her composure, she makes Kyle promise that he won't do anything reckless and will return to her safely. Then, under the trees, they share a long, quiet hug. Since he has a long trip ahead, he needs to prepare for it. He takes a walk to the market and brings Lise along. As they walk, he apologizes to her for stressing her, but it wasn't really stress. She notices a beauty in the market. It's an elf, and she calls his attention to the pretty elf. When the elf turns to their side, she can't help but notice how stunning she looks. Kyle recognizes her too. It's Urza. He walks towards her, thinking of the best way to introduce himself again. He recalls that one day in his first life she had told him her true name, and since it's a secret, he thinks it's the best way to reach her. He calls her the name Excess before he realizes that was a huge mistake. At that time, only 3 people in the world know her true name, just her parents and her, so she sees him as an immediate threat. He tries to calm her down, but knowing her, he knows she'll make a scene, so he decides to make her sleep instead. He invokes her true name to make her sleep, and she rests on his body. As he sighs in relief that it's over, Lise burns with anger behind him. She accuses him of cheating, and he tries to explain that he met Urza when she wasn't in the world. But what does that mean? Because she's right there, refuses to listen and insists that if he travels alone, he'll surely collect all the ladies in the royal capital, so she will surely follow him. He can deal with her another time. Urza is the priority. She wakes up and he tries to explain himself. There's barely any way he can do that, because why would she believe that she'll meet him in 5 years? They'll fall in love and she'll be the one to tell him her true name. A stranger knowing her true name is also very dangerous for her, so the only way she can be sure she's safe is to kill him. Kyle doesn't want to die, not when he hasn't even found the solution to the world's ruin. So he finds a solution. He tells her that he can make an application of contract with her and vow that he won't use her name for evil until he tells her where he got it. She's even shocked that he knows about applications of contract. She asks him if he knows what will happen if he breaks the contract, and he says yes, because he'll die. That works for her, but she can't make an application until it's a full moon, and the full moon is still weeks away, so she asks him to stay there with her. He can't do that because he has to travel the next day. Left with no choice, they make a decision. The following day, Kyle's parents send him off. Lise insists she'll follow him, so he goes with Lise, Theron, and of course Urza, who is following him because she wants to create the application of contract. He walks away from the path they were meant to take to the royal city, and Lise asks him why. He tells them he wants them to go to Sungard first. He reminds them of the legend around that area, the Magic Queen Labyrinth. He brings out the map and says they're going there. They laugh at him, saying no treasure exists there, and Theron even insults him that someone so money-conscious will only get duped. They insist the map that was sold to him is fake, but when Urza checks, she sees the paper is old and might be original. Since a pretty girl is telling them it could be real, they all decide to trust her. However, Lise shows them that where the treasure is marked on the map is actually very far and the labyrinth is very deep. He tells them he has his plan and they don't have to worry, and for his plan he hopes they'll dig their way through and won't have to fight. They arrive at the labyrinth and they start digging. Theron wonders why they can't just enter, but he explains that there are magic circles there and they'll have to fight long wars. Theron wonders if he saw all of that on the map, but no, he hadn't. He had experienced it before, knew how much he had to do before getting to the treasures, and doesn't want that stress again. He tells them that he also didn't imagine that the first thing he'd do after deciding to be a hero would be to dig. Urza comes to distract. She commands them on how they should dig, and they all obey the woman commander. After a long day, they all go to eat a meal made by Lise for them. When each of them takes a bite of the meal, they're shocked at how amazing it tastes. Urza even says the meal refills her lost energy. She sees that Lise has hung a boar and asks her how she caught it. She tells her she caught it with her hand, which shocks Urza. Urza makes a pool for herself and Lise to bathe. The pool gets Lise excited and they start to talk. Lise talks about how much she's jealous of people who can use magic because she can't use it. Urza appreciates her great strength, which she used to capture the boar, and asks if she got that strong because of Kyle, which she admits. She tells Urza she doesn't have to be scared that Kyle knows her true nature because she's sure Kyle can't hurt her. She admits that she knows Kyle is hiding something, but she's sure he'll tell them when he thinks it's right. They play like sisters until they continue digging. Urza returns to dig with Kyle, but confronts him about his true purpose. She insists that the other two may trust him because they know him, but she doesn't know him and has no reason to trust him. She reveals she knows the ring on his hand has something to do with his mission, and he admits she's right. It increases his strength. He keeps digging to try to distract her, and fortunately he gets to the treasure and asks her to call the others. They enter and see the gold coins there. Theron runs there and bathes himself in the money. While the others stand in awe, he reminds them that the money is just for him to reach his purpose faster and not for stupid use. When he sees they're distracted, he excuses himself to find his sword. He goes to the sword and a bright light shines from it. The spirit comes out and admits it's been a while since she's seen a human. Will he enter a contract with this sword again? The sword spirit goes into full NPC mode and starts a long speech to congratulate Kyle on reaching here, but Kyle quickly puts his hand on her mouth, telling her to quiet down as he doesn't want his friends to hear them. Before she gets offended, he explains that he already knows of her status, that she is an exact copy of the late Magic Queen Sildonia who reigned during ancient times, and the sword behind her was crafted by Sildonia. Sildonia asks how Kyle knows all this, and Kyle replies that he'll explain everything later. In any case, he mentions to her that he and his friends skipped all of the traps and riddles by digging a shortcut, and Sildonia feels disrespected because this dungeon is her tomb. Regardless, Kyle wants to pull out the sword now, and knowing that once he does so, there will be a final trial, he requests her to handle it. Taking an interest in this mysterious guy, Sildonia decides to trust him and gets back inside the sword again. As Kyle pulls it out, she takes a moment to read his memories and then comes out, asking him if he's actually come back in time. Kyle nods and tells her that he still has the divine dragon heart in his possession that was used for the time travel magic. Sildonia still has a hard time believing all of this, even though she knows time travel magic exists. But before she can ask him anything else about it, Kyle's friends walk in there looking for him. Kyle quickly whispers to Sildonia to follow his lead, and then starts acting like he's come here completely by coincidence, shouting that he's just found a legendary intelligent sword. He also acts as if he's meeting Sildonia for the first time and then introduces her to his friends. Liza gives Sildonia some cookies to eat and asks her if she's really the ancient Queen Sildonia. Sildonia explains that she's actually a part of the real Sildonia, and to be more precise, a magic life form created by Sildonia with the sole purpose of evaluating if the ones who come to this tomb are worthy of having her treasure. Kyle doesn't get why a magical being like her needs to eat cookies, and Sildonia explains that she's converting these cookies into magic power, and so they are not really going to waste. Liza has more questions, and she can't help but ask why Sildonia looks like a child, and Sildonia explains that she had stopped her growth herself when her magic power reached the maximum limit. Sildonia reveals to everyone that there was a final trial that destroys this dungeon, and she was supposed to turn it on if she didn't think Kyle and his friends were worthy of her treasures. Of course, she didn't do that because Kyle requested her not to in the first place, but still Sildonia gives him verbal approval, telling him that he can now use her sword as he pleases. She tells Kyle to take the port bag sitting on their right as well, as this bag acts like an other-dimensional inventory that connects to this treasure room. Theron tells Sildonia his desire to use Sildonia's sword, asking her to give it to him instead of Kyle, but she instantly refuses, stating they are not compatible, and both Liza and Urza joke about how Theron keeps getting rejected by everyone. Anyway, the group, along with Sildonia, heads back to the royal capital as Kyle's next goal is to buy high-quality gear with the infinite money he has now. He throws some money at the shopkeeper to make him realize how rich he is and then buys the flagship product of the shop. Then Kyle tells the others to also pick whatever equipment they want, and shortly after, they buy whatever they like in the shop. While Kyle shows off his flashy blue armor, Liza reveals that she's bought a pair of gauntlets as she's a fighting type. Urza, on the other hand, has bought a spirit stone amulet. And lastly, Theron has bought himself armor that honestly looks cooler than Kyle's. Theron in his new look tries to flirt with an assistant, but scares her off with his cringe words. Meanwhile, Kyle takes a look at some magic stones for offensive purposes that are highly effective against reptilian monsters. The shopkeeper brings out a blizzard stone that activates an ice spell, and Kyle decides to buy every single one of this magic stone, even though they are super expensive. He also decides to buy all of the healing potions the shopkeeper has and gives him 10 million jails for it. Once they are done shopping, the shopkeeper and his assistants thank Kyle for making them rich and request them to come back again in the future. While walking back, Theron worries that someone might spread a rumor about like they robbed a bank or something, but Kyle doesn't worry about it, revealing to Theron that he intends to leave the city tomorrow morning. Learning this, Theron and the rest of the group decide to explore the royal capital since another chance to come here might never come. Meanwhile, Kyle uses this opportunity to speak with Sildonia in private, bringing her to their hotel room first. He then asks her about her opinion. Can he really change the future? I mean, he already has by meeting with Urza and Sildonia way earlier than he was supposed to. But anyway, Sildonia states that changing the past doesn't change the future. She puts it simply that Kyle has entered an alternate timeline, a parallel world, which still means that Kyle with his actions can make a change in the future and perhaps stop the Great Invasion. Kyle doesn't understand why the Divine Heart Crystal came here with him. If the crystal came here as a copy, why is it that Kyle didn't come as a copy as well? Sildonia theorizes that it's because of the use of a fusion spell. According to her, a fusion spell increases one's magic power by fusing their souls, and the reason the crystal came here was so that it could fuse this world's Kyle soul with the regressed Kyle soul, increasing his magic power at the same time. It does make sense to Kyle as he's noticed that his strength and magic power have doubled. Sildonia theorizes that with these cheat boosts Kyle will be able to use the highest level of spells in history, but mastering them will be what he should focus on. Anyway, he's gotten all the advice he needed, so he thanks Sildonia and goes back to reading books and stuff. Urza and Liza share a room throughout the entire journey, and they have gotten quite close. That night, Liza comments that the journey hasn't been that bad. She has learned how to camp well, and she no longer finds camping as difficult as she used to. She asks Urza if she isn't sleeping yet. However, it is a full moon and Urza enjoys looking at the moon, so she reveals that she doesn't want to sleep yet. Liza leaves her and goes to bed while she considers all that has happened over the past month since she started the journey. When she started the journey, she wasn't quite optimistic about it. However, it has been fun. Liza is a cute little girl and they have gotten quite close. Sildonia is very knowledgeable and always has new things to teach and say, which makes being around her fun. Theron, on the other hand, is just fun to watch. As for Kyle, she still feels confused about him. She knows he is hiding something. He is secretive, and when he looks at her, his stares feel as though he can see through her mind. Shockingly, she isn't uncomfortable about all of this. She is very fine with him. Just as she thinks about Kyle, Liza sleep talks and says she is the only one that is allowed to be around Kyle. Just as if she knows Urza is considering how comfortable she is with him. Liza's strange expression takes Urza aback, but after she recovers, she looks at the moon and prays to the goddesses of the moon to bless their journey. She suddenly remembers that it is a full moon, and that is the day she is meant to enter an application of contract with Kyle. If she doesn't do it that day, she will have to wait another month. She immediately stands up and starts looking for him. Speaking of Kyle, he has just finished training with the sword and is exhausted. He lies on the floor, satisfied with how good he is getting with the sword. Sildonia comes to speak with him. She talks about the fighting technique he uses. Saying it wasn't available in their old world, he compliments the sword, revealing that it works as if it is attached to his body. Sildonia is sure about that. Zarl's is one of the best swords ever made, and there is no other sword that is greater. He even tells her that he has used mithril swords before and they are not that good. Urza arrives and screams at him. He wonders why she is looking for him at midnight, and she reminds him that it is a full moon. He doesn't even remember that they have to make an application of contract and isn't interested in doing it with her at the moment. He tries convincing her that they could do it during the next full moon, but her real name is at stake, so she cannot take that risk. She commands him to have the contract with her immediately because she won't take chances. She goes to the middle to draw the contract line and reveals that an application of contract is just like a marriage ceremony. The two parties exchange their true names and make promises that they wouldn't use the name for evil. It also means the two parties must stay around each other. It is just like marriage. By the time she finishes drawing the line, Kyle is dozing off. She wakes him up and commands him to come. As he goes, he recalls when they both did an application of contract in his previous life and imagines that from that moment they will be together. She makes him swear that he wouldn't use her name for evil, and after swearing, he moves closer to kiss her. She pushes him away and asks what he is doing. In his first life, when he did the contract with her, they were already in a relationship, so she kissed him. He assumed that kissing was a necessary ingredient to seal the contract, which was why he did it again. However, she reveals it isn't needed and is only used when it is a marriage ceremony. She is angry at him and it activates fire behind her. She commands the fire to consume him for his actions and he screams. The following day, the team begins a journey to Arken Town. However, on their way, Urza, Kyle, and Therion due to tiredness, so Liza wonders why they all didn't sleep. Kyle tries to brush her off by saying there was an unfortunate situation. He also stops Urza from speaking about how he got burnt. It gets worse when Liza smells fire on his body, but he still refuses to talk. Theron, on the other hand, didn't sleep because he was chasing ladies, so Liza can't be bothered. She asks why they are going to Arken, and Kyle lies to her that Sildonia has the ability to predict the future and that they are visiting Arken based on her prediction. Sildonia knows he is lying and her reaction is off, so Liza notices and confronts them. But again, they brush her off. They arrive to a crowd at Arken and find out through Theron that the Princess of Arken, Princess Milena, a beautiful and kind-hearted Cinderella, who is the pride of the city, is visiting that day. Fortunately, the other members of the team haven't seen her before and they are excited to meet her. When she arrives, she is just as beautiful as she was predicted to be and kind-hearted too. She even helps a kid who fell. Kyle looks at her bodyguard and recognizes him. Sildonia asks Kyle if Milena is his target, and he says yes. Later, he needs Sildonia to give her an update on his plan. In 2 days in the forest between Arken and Sinesh, Milena will die. It happened in his previous life when Milena clocked 16, which is now she would be attacked by hydras. Sinesh has recently been attacked by hydras, which is exactly why Milena visited to pay her condolences. She would die on her way to Saints, and it would be deemed an unfortunate situation caused by her kind heart. But for Kyle, it's her carelessness. Because why are you traveling to a city that you know is under attack? Sildonia, on the other hand, thinks there could be a political undertone to Milena's death. Kyle admits she is right. There is a person who benefits solely from Milena's death, and that is her stepbrother, Karina's. Shockingly, Karina's is also in the city at the moment, but he is socially awkward so he doesn't come out. Regardless of how suspicious it is that Karina's will be king after Milena's death, the people just took her death as an unfortunate event and moved on. This is Kyle's plan. He hopes that in 2 days he will successfully save Milena from dying, and that will be his first heroic act. It will sing his pride all over the world as the savior of the kingdom's pride. A hero needs recognition, and that is his first bet at it. Will he succeed? Theron comes inside, reporting to Kyle that he has asked around in town about Princess Milena's plans, but has found nothing at all. Kyle asks Theron why he's been asking around about this, suspecting he's overheard them talk, but Theron explains that he's fallen for Milena and is going to meticulously save her from any danger in the future to come out as her hero, and that is why he's trying to learn about her plans, to see whether she's doing anything dangerous. Kyle can't believe that he also came up with the same idea for different reasons, but in any case he reveals that the princess will be in danger. Theron, in response, asks Kyle if he's become a fortune teller now, and Kyle explains that it's actually Sildonia who has prophetic abilities, and according to her prophecy, the princess will be attacked by a hydra on her way to the Sinesh village in 2 days. Theron thanks Kyle for letting him know and declares that he will follow the princess around 24/7 from now on to make sure nothing bad happens to her, meaning he'll now stalk her around. 2 days later, the princess is off in her caravan to the Sinesh village with 2 town guards as her escort. Kyle's gang sees them off from the bushes and Liza can't help but ask how Kyle is so sure that the princess's life is in danger. As Kyle is about to explain why he is so sure, Sildonia interrupts him speaking for him that she had a prophetic vision, which is an ability of hers. It's clear that she herself is fed up with lying, but since this is the only way for Kyle to explain how he knows the future, she's agreed to do so. Anyway, Urza asks Sildonia exactly how they are going to follow the caravan, as they cannot afford to be spotted by the princess's guards, and Sildonia replies that they are going to use another one of her abilities to keep an eye on the caravan. To do the following part, Sildonia turns into a hawk, shocking the group who never knew she could shapeshift, and Sildonia explains to the obviously confused group that her true form is the gemstone in Kyle's sword, and she can actually transform into any being using her mana. With that, she takes off, and after spotting the carriage, she shares her vision on Kyle's sword's gemstone, allowing Kyle's group to see live what's going on. Theron is jealous because with Sildonia's ability, Kyle can stalk anyone from home, and perhaps peep on women in their showers. Bro's idea and way of thinking disgusts both Liza and Urza, and they are about to beat him up thinking he must have tried to spy on them when they were taking a shower. Theron admits that he did try to do so, but Kyle stopped him and Liza is relieved, stating that thanks to Kyle, Urza's secret hasn't been exposed. However, Kyle accidentally blurts out the fact that he already knows about Urza's heart-shaped birthmark on her, but leaving everyone to question if Kyle is a bigger pervert than Theron. This is of course a misunderstanding, which I don't even know how it's misunderstanding, but fortunately for Kyle, Sildonia interrupts them, informing them that she spotted something strange. The drivers of the caravan, for some reason, have stopped the horses and are now attacking the guards. Kyle realizes that it must be Melina's half-brother Karina's doing, so he quickly heads to the location, where the drivers have already gotten rid of the guards and have spread some evil ingredients on the ground that I'm assuming attracted the Hydra in the previous timeline that attacked the princess. Kyle quickly takes out both drivers with ease and ties them up, wanting to interrogate them to confirm who sent them. Meanwhile, Theron goes inside the caravan and finds Princess Melina unconscious, which makes him glad that she's unhurt. At that moment, a pack of hellhounds approaches the caravan, and it's up to Urza, Liza, and Kyle to deal with them while Theron protects Melina inside. The hellhounds are too many for them to deal with, and as they are getting outnumbered, Kyle calls out to Theron, asking him to get the caravan moving, but Theron finds that the drivers cut the reins and he requires some time to fix it. As if they didn't have enough trouble already, a Hydra approaches them from the forest, shaking the ground itself. Out of the 4 of them, Kyle knows only he can fight against this beast, so he goes into the forest, leaving the group with the task of protecting Melina. While Liza punches the lives out of the hounds attacking her, Urza summons a salamander beast to deal with the rest. Meanwhile, Kyle is still running towards where the Hydra is, when Sildonia, just to make sure, asks him if he knows how to defeat a Hydra. Kyle in reply claims to have defeated one with 3 heads in his previous life, but he's unsure how difficult beating this Hydra is going to be. As he comes before the Hydra, it's revealed that it has way more than 3 heads, 8 to be exact, leaving Kyle wondering what he's going to do now. Yes, he has fought a 3-headed Hydra before, but the one in front of him isn't 3-headed, it's 8-headed. He's caught off guard, not knowing exactly what he should do. Sildonia asks what their plan is and if they should run, but it's too late to run now. He tells her he can stand against it. It may be hard, but he'll do his best. His mission is to save the world, and he'll do that no matter what. The good and easiest thing about a Hydra attack is the fact that its attack is straightforward and very easy to predict and avoid. However, there's another major danger, the fact that a Hydra releases poisonous breath. Indeed, the Hydra releases its poison on him, corrupting the entire area. The Hydra assumes it's all over when he stops, but it doesn't know that Kyle's leather coat has the power to repel that poison. After the poisonous smoke clears, Kyle emerges. He brings out one of the blizzard stones he bought and throws it at the monster. It causes the creature to start freezing. Then, he throws another stone for explosion and successfully cuts off one of the Hydra's heads. He's standing tall against this dreadful monster, and Sildonia even commends him, admitting she didn't know he could stand off that well. However, it isn't over until it's over, and right now it's definitely not over. Another disadvantage of fighting a Hydra is its insane regeneration ability. In a split second, the head he cut off regenerates, and with renewed anger and strength the Hydra releases another level of poison at Kyle. Kyle runs through it with his coat and throws another stone at the monster. He does this over and over again, but on each attempt after cutting off a head, it grows back. He jumps during one attempt and cuts off 3 of the heads, but each one grows back and reattaches to the original body. Urza continues fighting her own set of monsters, but she's deeply concerned about Kyle. She doesn't believe Kyle can defeat a Hydra on his own. She voices her concerns to Liza, who shares them, but reminds her that they haven't even defeated the monsters they're facing, so they need to focus on protecting themselves first. The trio keeps trying their best to fend off the monsters, but they are simply too many. Meanwhile, Kyle realizes that he has only one blizzard left and the monster isn't dying. To defeat it, he must hit the source. He holds his last blizzard and makes a run for it. He rushes to the core of the Hydra, stabs it and places the blizzard into the wounds. Enraged, the Hydra throws him aside. He slams into a tree. The monster tries to fight back, but it's too weak. It explodes and its entire body scatters across the area. Sildonia can't help but appreciate Kyle. She comments that placing the blizzard in an open wound made it impossible for the monster to survive. He reminds her that he prepared for this life and he's going to complete his mission. He looks at the scattered flesh around him and admits it's a gruesome sight. Around the same time, Urza and the others finish their fight and go looking for Kyle, but they're shocked to see him walking out of the forest. Urza is amazed that he defeated a Hydra single-handedly, and when he gets closer, he reeks of Hydra blood. They insist he stay away from them until he washes off the stench. He goes to the nearby river to wash himself off, and Sildonia, feeling his pain, tells him that she knows he wanted more praise but didn't get any. After washing up, he returns to the crew and finds Theron checking the carriage. Theron discovers the drug that had been used to summon the monsters, and when Kyle takes the pack, he realizes that Sildonia was right. The attack on Milena wasn't random, it was an assassination disguised as a monster invasion. Urza informs him that Milena and her maids still haven't woken up and it's as if they were drugged. Kyle suggests giving them a drug to counter the poison and Urza follows through. They decide to wait and hope Milena wakes. Meanwhile, a darker situation unfolds. Prince Karinas is waiting for news of Milena's death. He's tapping his fingers and counting down for updates. Right beside him is Zentos, the princess's guard. When the time for an update arrives, Zentos orders the guards to be sent to the forest. It's late at night, and Milena still hasn't woken. Kyle enters the carriage in concern and fortunately, Milena wakes at that exact moment. She asks if she's still alive and confesses that she thought she would have died. She asks if they were the ones who saved her, and before Kyle can speak up, Theron jumps in to take the glory. Liza smacks him and gets him to settle down, Kyle kneeling in front of the princess. He explains that he saw her under attack while traveling and stepped in to save her. Her maid Arca wakes up and tries to send the strangers away, but Milena calms her down. Milena attempts to go out and see the aftermath, but Kyle tries to convince her otherwise. Since she insists, he lets her go. She sees her dead guards and is overwhelmed with sadness. Liza quietly comments that she looks and feels completely different from the cheerful young lady they saw the day before. At that moment, Sildonia informs Kyle that the guards from Urchin are on their way. He immediately tells Milena to calm down. She's safe now, but Milena panics. She says they must run immediately before the guards arrive. He reminds her that the guards are from her kingdom and should be there to protect her, but she tells him that the person who wants her dead is the head of the 2nd Battalion, Zentos. If the guards find them there, they won't just kill her, they'll also kill Kyle and his friends. Kyle is stunned. He recalls seeing Zentos earlier and couldn't imagine he was that kind of man. Before they leave, Milena tells Arca to set all the bodies on fire. That will buy them time to escape. She instructs her second maid Ninos to ride the carriage, while Arca remains beside her. She offers Kyle's team a ride as well, saying she'll explain everything to them on the road. Before closing the carriage door, Theron throws the pack of the substance that was used to summon the monsters into the fire, hoping that more monsters will come out and will delay the guards. Well, they zoom off, but their journey is a quiet one. Kyle and the others are still processing everything they've just heard and seen. Will our hero get his accolades eventually?